Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here, and I just finished reading Boruto, Naruto Next Generations Volume 1 in one sitting. And I'm really impressed. Every time I saw Boruto, I kind of thought, oh no, it's a sequel to Naruto, and it's about his son, and it's about Sasuke and Sakura's daughter, and I bet everybody's just like their parents. And it really surprised me very pleasantly. The thing about these series is you never know. Like, I don't know if I'm going to keep reading Boruto and eventually it's going to go off the rails and not be that good. But Volume 1 is so good. I'm actually going to keep this. I usually give away the manga I get from Loot Anime. I think this might be like an Loot Anime exclusive cover. I enjoyed this so much, I'm going to keep this. And I will, I actually might have to go and finish Naruto now. So let me talk a little bit about my personal connection to Naruto. Like, Naruto hit me like just at the right time in college, where I was like working stuff out, trying to figure out who I was and who I wanted to be when I grew up, right? And so Naruto kind of like beautifully touches on a lot of those themes, but its problem is I think it stretches on too long. So I dipped out like somewhere like before the last great ninja war. So as a consequence, there may be some like ninja war stuff that I'm not up to speed on. There were like a few times where I didn't recognize who the bad guy was supposed to be, and I figured it must be like somewhere later in the anime or in one of the movies. But this did a really good job of catching me up. So I want to talk about a few industry-related things. So Masashi Kishimoto is the creator and supervisor of this series. The script is by Ukyo Kodachi, who notices it on the bottom because they could give the artist top building. And the artist is Mikio Ikimoto, and he was part of Kishimoto's studio of assistants helping him create the original Naruto manga, which is something I somehow read manga for years, and I didn't know this was a thing until like a couple years ago that they'd have all of these assistants helping them. But I kind of love it because it's almost like they're echoing something out of art history, and it's so odd to me that the Western comics market hasn't started doing this yet. But like Rubens would famously have like a whole bunch of studio assistants painting his stuff for him, and then he'd just paint the most important little bits. And that's basically what the manga industry is doing to get all of this really dense, really detailed work done quickly. And I think that Mikio Ikimoto is really, I mean, he helped make the original Naruto manga, right? So who better to kind of take on the legacy? There's a few little weak panels for him, but this feels like everything I like about the Masashi Kishimoto style, that it's kind of like toned down and not as anime-ish as other anime styles from the era. It's a little grungy, it's a little loose in places, but will have impactful moments. I think he's really carrying that on, and I kind of want to read this because I love seeing like someone like rise up and then take like the spot that their boss used to have and carry on their boss's legacy, their sensei's legacy. I'm short on time, and and this part's a pain to draw. Can you take it? Take it on, Mikio. That's what Kishimoto-san used to say to me a lot while drawing Naruto. In the beginning, it would be a background character, people sitting in spectator seats, the bad guy's gaggle of minions, and so on. At times, he would say, "You're the only one I can trust with this." And I would also get to draw Naruto's shadow doppelgangers, or even a large-sized main character that wasn't a doppelganger. And then one day, circumstances led to me being entrusted with an entire manga, an honor that is more than I deserve. I love this culture, and I love that the manga industry is sort of. I wish that guys like Mikio Ikimoto would get credited in all the manga that they add on. I wish that like in every Naruto manga there'd be a list of all the studio assistants who help, just so I can kind of be a geek and follow the careers of some of these guys. But I really, really wish that the Western comics industry would take a leaf out of this book and start having like teams of artists on books that work collaboratively. Now, part of the problem is that's expensive, and the manga industry is really successful, so there'd have to be like some shift in the Western comics market. But it's just so weird to me that there's this whole thing about the Japanese comics market that's completely different to the way people do it in the West, and I'm just so happy for him. So the thing I like about Boruto's story is I came in with really negative, really low expectations, and it did exactly what it needed to do to kind of like save me from saying, "Oh, great, it's just like Naruto," and dipping out. So, it kind of opens up with your big hook of there's going to be a bad guy, and Boruto's going to grow up to be a badass, and then immediately, vinyl record scratch back to Boruto as a young man. And he's not just like Naruto. He is kind of a opposite of his father in a way that makes sense. So, I mean, one way to do it would be like, oh, Naruto is super dumb and super determined. Let's make his son super smart and super lazy, because that's the opposite. But it actually kind of makes a lot of psychological sense. So one of the neatest things about Naruto is he was this sort of scrappy loser kid who felt lonely and had this real hunger and this real drive to succeed, so that he could gain recognition, but also so that he could have friends. Right, that's the pathos of Naruto's story. And Boruto's problem is that he's lucky enough to have a dad, which Naruto didn't. And because Naruto is human, he kind of has these flaws where, he's a really good man. He's a really heroic and a dedicated man. But that doesn't necessarily mean he knows how to be a good father, because he didn't have a father for him when he was growing up. He had to overcome that. Boruto is somewhat spoiled in that he actually has a great dad who's a good man, but daddy doesn't pay enough attention to him, which can be an annoying character trait. But I just really appreciated that when Boruto was narrating his story and looking back, he's sort of recognizing that he was a bit of a brat. Back then, I couldn't care less about being ninja. So I immediately have this promise that, yes, he's kind of a bit of a punk, spoiled kid now, but I've immediately got the promise that he's going to be going on a journey and growing into something special. And I really like the genre break that he's not just like Naruto and he wants to be the Hokage and he's super duper determined. It really makes sense to me that kind of like a spoiled, like the president's son who's a little bit spoiled and has all of these expectations on him would end up being kind of a different character than his dad. And Naruto shows up like from time to time. That kind of part of the whole point is that he's not super involved in his son's life because of his work as the Hokage. And I wish that Hinata and Naruto were actually a bigger part of this story, because it feels like the relationship of Boruto and his dad is the key drive for the character, and I hope that gets developed more. Hinata is someone who's always understood Naruto. She's always noticed Naruto's great qualities and admired Naruto's great qualities from afar, even when they were children. And so Hinata is someone who kind of understands that being the Hokage, it's the self-sacrificial job where you're doing a lot of work for the sake of the ninja village and for the sake of posterity. So Hinata kind of gets it. Boruto doesn't really get it yet. And I'm eager to see Boruto's journey unfold. And I think that this series is doing a really good job of doing some interesting world development stuff. So like the world has moved on a bit. Like the world of Naruto was always a little bit weird because it had like all this ancient ninja stuff, but there would be some modern technology like radio. So the technology is still kind of weird. They've moved forward a little bit, and now they've got things like ninja video games in Boruto's world. And there's this great metaphor that Naruto's like the kid Boruto's like the kid who uses the cheat on a video game to kind of skip everything and win instantly. And new technology is making it so that everybody can be a super duper ninja and do the super duper ninja attacks. So should they not use the super duper technology and develop their own abilities and become exceptional people, or should they just use the super duper technology and make everything easy? Right? This is like the 21st century problem. Dumbed down into like a great little ninja story. Is technology good for us, or is technology bad for us? So I'm really interested to see how that plays out. There's some great, like ninja head games where they have to pass the test. In order to pass the test, they've got to like see through the deception behind everything. Even though there were a few gags where it was like, oh, the next generation of kids, they're just like their parents, those were mostly like secondary characters. And I feel like the main cast, while they have attributes of both their mother and father, they're a little bit more of a they're unique. They're not just Uchiha girl, I forgot her name already. The daughter of Sasuke and Sakura has a few of Sakura's traits and a few of Sasuke's traits, but she's not exactly like either of them. So whereas Boruto hates the idea of being the Hokage, he kind of resents that his dad has had children as the Hokage. She is actually quite motivated to become the Hokage. She kind of understands the importance of the role. So she's sort of like your typical like Poindexter, gunner kid nerd, right? And it's kind of charming. And I like how she's actually a lot more competent than Boruto, because Boruto has all this talent, but he's kind of lazy. I dig it. There's some like setups with like the bad guys in the background, killing some like super duper ninjas that make me wonder, oh man, what's going on? What are the bad guys going to be doing? Some Chunin exam stuff that's always kind of fun. And then this story at the end. So after the like Boruto growing up, will he become better than his dad kind of stuff. There's this really interesting kind of backstory thing that is almost like a perfect standalone creepy manga story. So is this a spoiler? I don't think this is a spoiler. So they give you Mitsuki's backstory, and Mitsuki is connected to Orochimaru. I guess it's a minor spoiler. Mitsuki is connected to Orochimaru in a way I don't quite understand. I've really got to go finish Naruto, right? So I can make sure I'm actually keeping up with everything. So Orochimaru is still around. He or she is still alive as kind of like this ungodly Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein kind of thing. And what was interesting about this is for me, in the original Naruto, like Orochimaru's creepy. He's obviously really evil. He wants to be like a god and experiment on people and become immortal. So he's just like straight up generic bad guy. And in this, we kind of get like a different perspective on Orochimaru and sort of his twisted way of viewing the world. And there's this really great twisteroo I can't spoil because you should just read it and sort of enjoy the head game aspect of it. I love the designs. I don't think it'll be a major spoiler. I just want to show you the design for Log because I think he looks completely dope. And there's like a great old, ninja fight scene where they're using magic to trick each other. That was one of the things I always enjoyed about Naruto is even though sometimes like the shinobi powers would get a little ridiculous, it always felt like they had specific defined powers and they'd have to use their powers in a creative way to strategically beat their opponent. Man, look at those cliffs. That was so dope. I used to get in debates with my roommate about who was better, Ichiro Oda, the artist for One Piece, or Naruto. And I didn't say that, that Kishimoto was better than Oda. I just thought they were two very different styles and two very different artists with their own styles that worked in different ways. Where Oda was a little bit more cartoony and fun and crazy, and Kishimoto was a little bit more reserved and maybe a bit more focused on giving you like this grand effect. So I think this is really continuing the legacy of Kishimoto's art as well. There's also a really beautiful thing at the end where it's kind of like the Japanese name can have a couple different meanings. And so as Mizuki, gosh, I hate Japanese names. You deserved it. You deserved Pearl Harbor. You guys brought it on yourself. Mitsuki. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so Mitsuki, the name can mean a couple things in Japanese. So as he kind of becomes his own person, he figures out who he is. And look at that. Just one big dope circle for big effect. I love it. So you should definitely pick this up just for that. Just the last chapter as a standalone story is worth picking it up for. I'm sure it'll have consequence on the bigger universe and the universal world. I don't know if the rest of the series is going to be good, but as a volume one, an excellent volume one. Gets me interested in new characters, brings in some elements from the original series without like just copy pasting what Naruto was over again into the next generation. It's being its own thing and developing the world in an interesting way. So I will finally go finish Naruto. I guess I held out long enough, and I'm really strong start for Boruto for me. So with that, number one Marmaduke fan, I love you guys. If you want to support this channel, like, comment, subscribe. Check out my Subscribe Star. My subscribers on Subscribe Star, I thank them in the credits of every video I make. I really appreciate all your feedback and comments on my videos, and I will catch you later. Peace.